Imagine opening your favorite social media platform and finding that an immigrant is telling other immigrants how to turn empty houses into their own possessions, their own homes. This isn't fiction. This is happening in America right now.
The NYPD has new insight on who may be connected to the murder of a woman whose body was found stuffed inside a duffel bag in her Manhattan apartment. Investigators are looking for a pair of squatters, a man and a woman, who they believe were staying in the apartment prior to the gruesome discovery.
Mi gente, he pensado invadir una casa en United States.
So today I'm going to go into this new video to talk about these crazy laws that have to do with these squatters taking over the properties in the United States. I want to touch 4 points. Number one will be the role of social media. Recently, this immigrant from Venezuela made it all over the news, talking about how he was incentivizing other immigrants to come and take over a lot of these properties that are vacant and how they can make money with these properties to renting them out to Airbnb type of thing, or to even going to the point of refinance them and get some of that equity back out. I am not an expert when it comes to adverse possession or squatter laws, as is normally commonly called online, but this is something that it's very important for you to pay attention. And I'm only going to speak for what I know here in the state of Maryland, and I'll give you some tips on how you can protect your property. But let's just talk about what is happening right now. And this is not going into any politics because I don't like any of those things, but let's just call things the way they are. The immigration that we are seeing right now is very different from the immigration that we saw back in the 60s and the 70s. I was not alive back then, so I'm not that old, but this is kind of like what is happening. Recently, one of the senators from the United States Senate was actually making a good comparison of what happened when Cubans came to United States and were working 2 jobs in order to provide for their families. We're not living off any welfare, and we're just really trying to save so much money they can to buy a property with a 20-30% down payment. And one of their goals was, in addition to provide for their family, was to pay off these houses as soon as possible so they can potentially buy another one if that was their intention. Now, just move forward to 2024, 2023, immigration that we have right now, they seem to be like they come to this country to receive freebies. And some of those freebies is houses. And why are we talking? What all immigration has to do with the squatters and houses and real estate? Well, it's simple. A lot of these immigrations went to sanctuary cities where they were kept in there into very comfortable hotels. Now they have been let go from these places, these hotels, and they put them out to the streets. And now they have to face the reality, what it means to be in America, in a country they don't know nothing about. They sometimes don't even speak the language, and there is a willingness to work and do certain things, but not necessarily to the point that we all think they want to do it. So with all that said, then now, they start talking to other cultures and to find out what it's going on with things that you can do. And they're probably getting the wrong advice from other people, but some of the advice is just to take over some of these vacant houses and try to rent them out, occupy them for themselves, for other family members, other friends, you name it. That is really the reality, what is happening, and that it is a big issue that we were seeing. And I know some of the states they had very kind of relaxed laws. Now they're just kind of making them a little bit more difficult. So we'll talk more about that. Now let's talk about point number 2. What is the impact of all these things happening into our communities? So it definitely has a very negative impact, because what it's happening, this is targeting communities that are for affordable housing, like entry-level communities. So where I am located in Rockville, Maryland, you definitely have for people with more opportunities, with degrees or more money, or I don't want to call it rich communities, but definitely there is definitely that sense that these people are not an entry-level buyer. So maybe a squatter is not going to try to take a property in Potomac, Maryland, but maybe they'll try to do it, we're going to say Wheaton, Maryland, or maybe Gaithersburg, Maryland, or Germantown, Maryland, where they probably see more entry-level townhomes, single-family homes, where they can come over and start using this property. Initially, they may not want to get a lot of attention because of the police and the next-door neighbors that can alert other people, or homeowners association, which we are pretty big in this area. But the reality is these people will consider doing something crazy and start taking possession of these things. What it gets crazy sometimes is when a lot of these homes are advertised on places like Craigslist or Airbnb, where they're now renting rooms for the weekends and basements and so on. So that's when it really becomes a big problem. So what happens is these communities now starting to see this movement of people, and sometimes they don't know what's going on, what's happening, why is all this taking place, and it's mind-boggling for a lot of people. So your community could potentially have an impact, a negative impact, if it is known or believed, especially if they make it to the news, where the squatters are taking over, they're starting to live in these properties, and they're just kind of like making the community not look as clean. They're not really all the regular guidelines, bylaws from the HOA or the subdivision are not being enforced because these people really don't care, and they'll just come in to trash your property. So if you see a lot of trash cans in the front and stuff like that, this is why these people probably do it, because they just really don't care about it and they just want a free place to stay or to rent out to make money. So now let's understand a little bit more about the laws, and this is where I am not an attorney. I am not here to give any advice of any kind when it comes to laws and interpretation of these things, but I'm going to read something from doorloop.com that it talks about the Maryland squatters' rights. And it says adverse possession is the basis for determining squatters' rights. A squatter may lawfully acquire ownership of your vacant property if they occupy it for a predetermined period of time and adhere to the Maryland law. This is still possible even in the absence of payment. To prevent this, you must become familiar with the squatter rights. Otherwise, your property can be taken from under your nose and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay? Nothing you can do. At first, someone might squat on your abandoned premises without your permission. This means there is no lease agreement in place that you can terminate. If you choose to disregard their presence, enough time may have passed for them to legally seize your property. In Maryland, if you own property, you must keep an eye out for the squatters occupying abandoned homes or buildings. If not, they may assert ownership rights over your real estate asset, making it difficult for you to retrieve it back from them. So let's just talk about the adverse possession. A squatter must inhabit your land for a predetermined period of time in order to acquire a squatter's right in Maryland and file an adverse possession claim. A squatter in Maryland has to live on your property for 20 years before they can obtain legal ownership of the area. However, the squatter will need to continually occupy the property to establish adverse possession to make a claim. Under the Maryland law, the 5 factors that need to be satisfied to gain legal title over a property include continuous possession, hostile claim, open and notorious possession, actual possession, and exclusive possession. So now this is exactly the things that you really need to be fully aware of what happened in this area. As I said, I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to go deep into these. I can put the link here in the video so you guys can read more about it. As I said, this is from doorloop.com, so it's pretty easy to understand. But now let's go to the last thing, which is going to be how can you protect your property, your asset? You worked so hard to buy this house, to put your down payment, extra hours, sacrifice vacations with the family, or other things you wanted to do because you wanted to buy this house, and for some reason you have to leave that area, town where you are, and go to another place, and somebody's just going to very nicely and freely take over your property. I don't think you can do that. So today I'm going to finish with my last point to talk about how can you prevent that. So I came across this article on Fox News that talks about this guy, how he kind of helps these people, and says number 1 is you have to document the squatters when they took possession of your property. Videos, pictures, and notes are very important for you to have. The very next thing is you need to lock your mailbox to prevent them to receive mail under your property address, so they cannot claim it's now their house. So that is very important. What these guys on Fox News says, forget about getting them out. Let's make it very hard to come back in, which I think is a very good point right there. Maybe installing a security camera, it's another good thing you should consider doing. Now that may require you to have to buy internet, and internet nowadays it can be $80 probably a month. So that's an additional expense, but probably worth it if that is the case. I know some people can buy the wireless VPNs that you can get at like the store like a Verizon, AT&T, and I've seen some people just put a one VPN and the camera just pointing to the main door or whatever it is and just connect it, and don't know if that's a cheaper solution. but that's definitely something you can do. And security cameras can be wired or wireless, so you can go to Amazon and put over there, and you have plenty of options to do that. And cost wise, they're not that expensive. They go from like $20 each to probably like $50, so it's not that complicated. You can also get some devices that help you close and open the curtains, and you can program those things, whether it is through Wi-Fi or the device itself through like a Bluetooth. But there's some certain devices that I've seen on Amazon that you can do that. Now, by the way, I'm mentioning Amazon. I'm not getting paid to mention that. It's just because that's the place that I normally see these things. So let's keep moving forward. You can also do the smart plugs that you can connect, and now those require internet connection, some of them, so that you can turn on and off lights on different sections of the house, so that way it looks like somebody's living there. You can also pay someone to come and check on your vacant property. That's not a bad idea. That's something that you should probably consider, but it will be, again, it's an additional cost. You can install an alarm system, a surveillance system that can be monitored on off-site location by real people, like ADT, one of those things. So those are the other things that you can do. And last thing I think it's a good idea is to install lights with sensors, floodlights with sensors, or just regular outside lighting that has sensors as somebody's trying to sneak in through their backyard, side yard, front door, whatever it is. You have these sensors go on. That's it. It's a lot to say. I hope that you like this video. Remember, if you're thinking about making a move here to Maryland, DC, and Virginia, you want to have a consultation, you can click here the link below to secure a spot with me, that we can do a video call or just a traditional phone call, that we can talk more about what you're trying to do here. If you want to move to this area, do me a favor, give it a nice like to this video. And if you find any value on everything that I'm posting and you want to continue to see more, you can smash that subscribe button. And every Thursday, a new video and hot at the press comes out to my channel. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.